God of War was big in 2022, it was big in 2023, and it looks like it will be big even in 2024. Howdy everyone, and Happy New Year! That was weird. Anyway, we got some big God of War news, and it seems like God of War Valhalla's Greek nostalgia doesn't just end there, as there are numerous developments hinting at a potential remake or remaster of the original Greek saga trilogy of God of War games. We've got rumors and interviews to go through that point us at a potential revisit to ancient Greece, where it all started with God of War, so you're not going to want to miss this update, especially for you God of War veterans out there itching for some more old school God of War. God of War Ragnarok Valhalla proved to be a compelling return to one of the most celebrated action games of our time, and while much of the DLC's narrative and gameplay centered around the familiar landscapes and enemies we have encountered throughout the Norse saga, Kratos' time thrashing through the arenas and iconic foes of his rampage through ancient Greece was easily one of the standout moments from this excellent DLC. From Helios in God of War 3 to the Blade of Olympus first introduced in God of War 2, the iconic Sacrifice Chamber from God of War 1, to the various arenas and enemies encountered throughout Kratos' adventures in ancient Greece, God of War Ragnarok Valhalla was as much a throwback to Kratos' past as it was a celebration of the series and how far the Ghost of Sparta has come. It seems that fans of the original saga in ancient Greece may be in for one heck of a pleasant surprise if the recent rumors are to be true, as word has been quickly circulating that the original God of War trilogy is set to be remastered for the PlayStation 5. Not only that, but the remaster may be releasing either later this year in 2024 or next year in 2025. I always mention this when going over rumors and leaks, but again, take this with heaping grains of salt, as none of this is confirmed. This rumor comes from Nick Baker from Xbox Era during their recent holiday podcast, an interesting source considering the majority of this guy's work revolves around the Xbox side of things. But he claims to have some insight into this remaster, although he doesn't explicitly name his sources. This is what Baker had to briefly say about the supposed project. I'm a person for a long time that has bemoaned the direction God of War went somewhat, and have yearned for the hack and slash OG God of War games. I just love them so much, and when I heard this might be happening, I told a friend of mine who loves the OG God of War games, and they got very excited. And I heard we might be getting the OG God of War trilogy remastered on PlayStation. Baker continues with, now, I'm not 100% sure if it will be announced in 2024 and released in 2024 or released in 2025. That part I'm not clear on, but what I have heard is OG God of War trilogy remaster. When pressed about whether God of War Ascension would be included in this compilation, Baker claimed he wasn't sure, but noted that it was described to him as the original trilogy, meaning God of War 1, 2, and 3. This would likely exclude the PSP games, God of War Chains of Olympus, and God of War Ghost of Sparta. Again, heaping grains here, fellas, heaping grains, but let's just entertain the thought of this actually happening for a second. We are in an era where especially Sony is making big money remaking and re-releasing older games in their portfolio to cash in on that nostalgia. And from this strategy of theirs, it absolutely makes sense to see Sony potentially consider re-releasing the older God of War games on modern hardware. We've seen the excellent Shadow of the Colossus remake, Demon's Souls remake, Medieval remake, and The Last of Us Part 1 all released within the last few years. And with The Last of Us Part 2 getting remastered and the leaked Horizon Zero Dawn remake coming out in the future, God of War's highly successful Greek saga trilogy getting remade, or at least remastered, doesn't surprise me at all. Definitely let me know your thoughts in the comments whether you think it would be a good move for Sony to remaster or remake these games. And while it may be exciting to hear the possibility of a project like this being worked on, it is odd that we never got mention of who is making it. Bluepoint Games, known for their incredible remasters and remakes in the past, recently got acquired by Sony back in September of 2021, and an insider shortly after that acquisition took to Twitter claiming that the studio was working on 2 projects, with one of them being a remake of a beloved game. This individual further dispelled rumors that Bluepoint Games was working on a Metal Gear Solid remake, and was correct, as we now know that Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta Snake Eater, a remake of Metal Gear Solid 3, is being remade by Virtuos in Singapore. With this information to go on, I guess you could say that a God of War remake may fall in line with something similar to that of what Nick Baker claimed to report recently, although a remake and a remaster are clearly different. Again, heaping grains of salt with this one, but honestly, I do believe something like this being a remake or remaster of old God of War games, is likely to happen at some point. God of War is only getting more and more popular, and with Sony really spearheading the movement of remaking and remastering their games in the industry, God of War, being one of their most beloved and popular franchises, just makes a whole lot of sense to get that treatment. In line with this announcement comes from the voice actor of Kratos himself, Christopher Judge, who took over as Kratos from the Norse saga of games. Judge, during a live stream event with Streamily, spoke about being opposed to voice match earlier renditions of Kratos from the Greek saga of games, played by Terrence C. Carson. In response to a question asking if Judge would match the voice of Carson's Kratos, Judge remarked with a firm, "Absolutely not. I love this dude," referring to Carson's work as the original voice of Kratos. That would be such a slight. We are celebrated for what we, as individuals, bring to stuff. That's across the board, no matter what you do. I just think it's inherently wrong to try to commandeer something that someone else has already established. Judge later clarified that it was not Santa Monica Studio, the creators of God of War, who asked him to do a voice match, but rather another game studio that did. This mystery game, if you will, is still unknown at this point, but seeing as there could be a push to remake or remaster games from the original trilogy, it could be true that Christopher Judge was asked to voice Kratos from these older titles. Both T.C. Carson from the Greek era and Judge from the Norse era did excellent jobs at articulating and bringing these renditions of Kratos to life. So if this rumor of a supposed remake or remaster of the earlier God of War games is to be true, we can expect at least Christopher Judge to not voice the character. Whether T.C. Carson will reprise his role as Kratos for said remasters is unknown. And even more speculation regarding a remake or remaster of the original God of War trilogy, there was a recent live stream from YouTuber Gamebreaker God who held a question and answer session with two developers from Santa Monica Studio. The hour-long live stream dove deep into the development of God of War Ragnarok and its DLC, Valhalla. But when followers started asking the YouTuber why he didn't ask the developers regarding the rumored remake, Gamebreaker God claimed that Santa Monica Studio did not approve those questions. Now, you can read this a number of ways, but many have taken this as an indication that a remake or a remaster of the earlier games is likely to happen, and that Santa Monica Studio just didn't want to spill the beans. As always, let me know your thoughts on this and whether you think this remake or remaster is likely in development in the comments. As for me, I'm a huge fan of God of War, and it doesn't matter which era of the series it is. I just love the games, and I would be thrilled to go back to the Greek saga of games if these rumors are to be believed. We've already got remasters for all three of the OG God of War trilogy, and while I'd be happy to play them again, I'm much more interested in seeing these games remade. If I had to guess, I'd reckon the very first God of War game is likely the one to see a remake here, and who knows what kind of remake this would be. If it were a faithful remake, they'd be keeping the fixed camera perspectives, epic set pieces, massive boss fights, and quick-time events that put the series on the map in the first place. If it's a reimagining, on the other hand, well, perhaps we'll have more of a retelling of the first game with everything that makes the Norse saga of God of War what it is. A game with a completely operational camera, gear and stat-based progression spanning many playstyles, heavy sense of exploration, etc. It would be awesome to see the earlier God of War games formatted like God of War 2018 and Ragnarok, but hey, I love that good old hack and slash gameplay that defined the earlier games. But let me know in the comments what you'd like to see from a remake or remaster of the early God of War games in the comments. If you're looking forward to knowing where God of War will go next, consider watching this video and stick around for more God of War coverage. Thank you all for your continued support, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Happy New Year!